Phumelela is the horse racing and tote betting operator in 7 of South Africa's 9 provinces and is recognized as a world leader in horse racing TV. Phumelela has a market cap of 632 million rand, a price to earnings ratio of 9 and a dividend yield of 8%. So Phumelela is much more the smaller one within this sector.
Yeah, and it's had quite a battle in recent years. As you said there, they now dominate the actual racing. For some reason, they managed to convince the competition authorities it wouldn't be a problem if they picked up the Western Cape as well. They had all the old race courses, some of which had property around them which wasn't required, which they could sell off, like they did with Newmarket in Alberton. So they've done all right, and then they've developed the television thing as a betting platform. So they've owned the television rights to some events, and people like gambling on horses. But it's a narrowing part of the gambling mix, I feel. Because as we said earlier, people that are interested in sport and sports betting, there are other places to go as opposed to actually going to the tote, which is a physical presence that they've had in the past. The internet is coming. So the earnings have been very volatile. But 2 key individuals involved with gaming in this country, which is Brian Cantor. Got to get the right, no, not Brian Cantor, Bernard Cantor, and Marcus Jooste, the Steinhoff chief, have taken control of this thing. And, this is now their sort of personal project. The share hasn't done all that well recently, but they do have some initiatives that look as though they could sort of stave off. But they've been complaining about everyone else. And the failure of government to regulate and protect their business, it's a bit of a sad story.
So, Chris, Paul not really liking this one or even the sector. You've been quite positive. How do you feel about Phumelela?
I think it's too narrow. I think, as Paul says, it's in one particular niche. I think what they do very well. But again, as Paul says, I think there's a far broader constituency out there that wants to do far more in the way of betting generally. So I think unless they're going to broaden their appeal, it's not hot for me.
Indeed, broaden the appeal. What could they do, Paul, to perhaps get the share price back to what we saw in 2008?
The sports betting part of it is exciting. I'm not quite sure what the exact regulations are in this country about sport betting, because gambling is seen by governments as a sort of a social ill, but it's something that they like to regulate and like to get their piece of the action. All around the world, you've got governments attempting to regulate web-based poker and web-based gaming and gambling and sports gambling, and try and tie down where people are so that they don't bet on games in some foreign regime without revealing their location so they don't pay tax. So I think the move will be to try and use things like Facebook and other social media platforms to tie people's location down so that they can then start legalizing the gambling. And I think that'll be in the US and it'll be here as well. So whoever can do that well, in this country, VoltBet, which belongs to Purple Capital, which is the same holding company as our sponsor, Global Trader, is involved with that. And they seem very excited about the expanding potential for sports betting in this country. So that's where you're watching, the Springbok rugby game against Scotland, and you think, hey, man, we can win this one.
Yeah.
And you stick a bit of money on, but the odds are fairly poor, and it works better for the house than it does for you. So I think that sort of thing, but whether Phumelela can recover its sort of former glory, I just don't see it. I know they're trying to reposition horse racing as a sort of a fun family outing type of thing. And I guess at some level it's the sport of kings and all of that, but it just feels a bit like yesterday's hero to me.
So no, Chris is not hot on this one. Are you hot on it, Paul?
No.
Well, 2 not hots on Phumelela.